let me make sure. Okay. And let me make sure I'm also sending this out to YouTube. So welcome if you're just joining. We will get started momentarily. We're just getting set up. Meg, if you want to start posting some of the resources in the chat, that would be fantastic. So people have access to some of that information about some of our free resources that we will be sharing during the presentation today. And maybe let's just make sure everyone. Hey, Meg, can you message me in the chat? Make sure you can see this. Great. Okay. In the chat. So kind of if you're welcome, please share it. We have people from all around the country who come to our events. I love to get a sense of where people are joining from, and let me know what town or city, or just say hello. That would be fantastic. And as you're coming in, if you have specific questions about the job search, please make sure you put those into the Q&A section as well. Just going to get some things going here. Okay, awesome. Let's see if that's actually, I think that's good. Just trying to figure out the lighting. Hi from Boston, Massachusetts. Hi, Lisa. Hi, everyone. So people are coming in. We'll start right at the top of the hour because I like to be prompt and mindful of people's time and that you're spending with us. So I'm very grateful that you're taking the time to be with us this evening as well. And let's make sure I have some information here. Okay, looks like we are getting started. So again, if you're just joining, please be so kind to fill out the poll. Quick 2 questions, if you can answer that for me as well. And also if you can, if you have any specific questions that you'd like me to address as we get into this session this evening, feel free to put those into the Q&A and I will do my very best to make sure that I am answering your questions. All right, we are at the top of the hour, so I am going to get started. So welcome, everyone. Very excited to have you here. Welcome to Next Great Step, getting our grads and our students hired, especially in this AI market. I run these open office hours and webinars about a few times a year, and we have a tremendous response because I think everyone understands how challenging it is. So let's get into what's going on in the market and kind of some of the things that we're seeing. So, when we think about this process of applying to school or going to college, and we all feel that if you study something or go to a certain university, that this is going to be easy, that you were told that you were doing all the right things, and somehow it's a lot more difficult than any of us ever anticipated in terms of landing that first job. And whether you're a parent, a student, a grad, concerned family member, we just didn't think it was going to be quite as difficult as it is. And we have this disconnect between young adults and grads. They are struggling, even though there's all this technology to auto apply, or you think you had the right major. A lot of our young adults are overwhelmed. We're still coming out of a lot of students who are dealing with the pandemic and some of those setbacks. Parents, and I'm one of them, I'll talk a little bit about that. We thought the university would do more. We thought they would be able to offer more. We thought that's what they promised as our students went to school and that they'd come out with a job. And then we have employers, and we have this really interesting thing going on right now with technology and AI. And employers need talent, but now they have to decide, do I want a human or do I want AI to take it over? Or do I use AI to help me with vetting individuals? So we have this problem, we have this disconnect. And from the last session that I did a few months ago, I think our world has changed dramatically, probably at a pace that we don't even fully understand in terms of how much AI has changed and is changing and will continue to do so. And I have done a lot of reading, researching, following, testing, trying. And that is what I want to share with you this evening about some of the lessons that I'm learning I'm sure by in a few days they could be outdated, but at least to give you a sense of where I think how AI is impacting the job search for young adults and really try to give you some value in that area. So for those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Beth Hendler-Grunt, and I am the CEO and founder of Next Great Step. And our sole focus is to help college students and recent grads land that first internship or that first job after college. And we do that by really focusing on two things. One, to help young adults figure out what do I want to do with my life? And two, once we've helped them with that process, to really figure out how are you the one who gets chosen over someone else. We have now celebrating our 10th year of doing this. We've worked with thousands of young adults to help them be successful in landing that first job. I'm also the Amazon #1 best-selling author of the book, The Next Great Step, The Parent's Guide to Launching Your New Grad into a Career. And I am also the mom of a college senior and another son who just graduated grad school. So I am living this with you real time. I get it. So tonight, my goal for the evening is to really talk to you about a few of these key pieces of really one, what's happening from parents, what we thought was going to happen, some of our perspectives, students and grads, what you thought were going to happen and what the experience is for you as you're trying to find a job. And what employers are really expecting and how they are adjusting their search in light of the technology. I will talk about specific hiring outlooks and trends that we're seeing, specifically the impact of AI, and then give you some very specific and actionable tips about how to navigate this new environment that we're all trying to figure out. And then I will absolutely leave time for Q&A. So if you are just joining, please note that in the chat, our intern, Meg, she's also a college senior who's working with us. She will be posting some of our free resources or some of the things that I might mention as we speak. Those will be in the chat. If you have specific questions as we go along, or you'd like me to answer certain things that are on your mind, please put those into the Q&A box. So that way I have a centralized place of where to look at that. I will definitely speak for a bit, and then I will pause, make sure we answer some questions and address your needs. Okay. So let's talk about, as parents, and I'm being one of them, what we really thought and expect out of the college experience for our young adults and where we think that would take our kids. We thought that the school promised, I put that in quotes, on the campus tour that our student or grad, they'd have a job when they graduated. We assumed that they would take advantage of all of those resources, such as career services, networking, career fairs, all those, access to professors. Did you know that only 4 in 10 students on average go to the career fair? It just isn't happening the way we thought. The other thing we also expected was that we thought our kids would learn life skills like networking, how to build relationships with other potential peers, professionals. And sometimes that's happening and sometimes it's not. We also think as parents, we think, what, we've been in the workforce for a while. We have a lot of our own connections. We will just make some introductions to colleagues, professional or personal, for our kids. But for some reason, that doesn't always work the way we thought as well. Our friends or colleagues are not always offering our kids jobs. We also may have not looked for a job in 20 plus years. And we think we know we're offering good advice, but very often our kids will say, that's not how it's done, Mom. So we're not sure. We sometimes question the advice that we're given. And the most common thing I hear from parents is this comment of, I wish I knew. I wish I knew how early the process started. I wish I knew how to give them better guidance. And the other piece that I hear is people say, well, I hope I'm too late. I feel like maybe I'm too late. And I just want to assure all of you, it's not too late. It's never too late. And yes, how do you all figure out AI in terms of part of that guidance as we move forward? Okay. Let's talk about students and grads. Young adults, they come into school and college, they're excited. They finally made it. It's been an effort to get into school. And the hope is that this university will provide everything that they showed in the tour or in the brochure of good connections and good opportunities. They come in feeling like, you know what, I have a major that I feel connected to, or I feel like everyone said this is the perfect major. So they start off optimistic, and maybe a year or two in, they say, you know what, let me try to get an internship. And they start off going to LinkedIn or Handshake or the school portal, and they realize all of a sudden people are not responding the way they thought. And they're like, maybe I have to just change my resume. Maybe I just have to fix my resume and my LinkedIn and stuff it with all the right keywords, and that's how I'll get found. So students will go through that process and adjust their resume. Maybe they'll use AI for their resume, and they start submitting, and maybe they'll hear back. Maybe they'll hear back from a job. Maybe it's a scam, or maybe you just get ghosted. So students sometimes start to realize, like, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Am I smart enough? Am I good enough? And start to kind of question their ability to land even an internship or first job. And we can't underestimate the mental health impact. 40% of young adults are dealing with some kind of mental health impact, whether it's anxiety, depression. And how do we separate that from the natural setbacks that happen in a job search? So, very often we see students who just are so overwhelmed by the process and not hearing back, they just get fearful. They feel paralyzed. They feel stuck, and they're not really sure how to move forward. They have tried to use AI, whether it's using AI to apply to jobs or AI to build the resume, but many are not really sure how to navigate when to use it and when to not. It's not just for cheating on your homework, and now lots of people are getting savvy about figuring that out as well. And then we have employers. Employers, and we all have read the headlines, employers have absolutely scaled back. 2 years ago, there were two job applicants for every job. I'm sorry, two openings for every job applicant. Now we have two applicants for every job. So it is very competitive. We know that they've pulled back on a lot of the white collar positions, and especially right now with some economic uncertainty, they're not sure. Maybe they want to be more selective about who they bring in. But they do need people who have the right talent and the right skills. And very often, hiring managers will say to me, I interviewed some candidates, but the candidates come to me and they just say, hey, I just want this job because it'll be great for me. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear how the job not only will be great for them and the company, but how you as a candidate can really solve problems for them and offer value. And they want to see more of that. There's this concept that I've talked about it in the past called quiet hiring. Quiet hiring is when instead of putting a job ad out on a job board, they'll just ask a peer of someone that they know and trust of, do you know anyone? Do you know anyone that I can fit for this opening? So it never hits the job boards. No one ever sees it. But the other thing that's happening right now is called job hugging, where because there is uncertainty in the marketplace, people who are maybe a few years out or a little bit more senior, people are hanging on to their jobs. So maybe with the natural flow of people moving on, there's fewer opportunities because more people don't want to leave the job they have because they know how challenging it is. And employers want to see real world experience. They want to see internships or how you applied your skills in projects, in school, in clubs. They really want you to do that. And what I've been hearing, and I'll share a little bit later, what some recent hiring managers shared with me is they want to see that you're practicing with AI. You don't have to be a coder. You don't have to be the engineer, but they want to see how are you bringing it into your life? Are you trying to maybe figure out your Excel spreadsheets to do some things that maybe you weren't able to figure out on your own? Are you able just to use it to analyze, to research, to synthesize information and add the human touch along with that? And I'll say one other thing, and this has been coming up in my feed a bit. They do not want to see parents involved in the hiring process for their grad. They do not want to get phone calls from a parent or have a parent do the applying or do the resume. And I know it sounds crazy. I have to just say it, but it's been out there that sometimes because our kids are so fearful, we sometimes take on a little bit more than we should, and employers that it does not go over well. So just wanted to share that. So what do we do about that? So we have this disconnect, and there's absolutely certain trends that I want to kind of lay on top of that and then talk about what the plan is of how we move forward. So let's start with the challenges. We know a lot of this. Right now, unemployment for grads is not great. It's higher than the national average, so 6% for grads and 4% nationally. As I said, there's high competition of two seekers for every job. And we know the industries that have pulled back in tech, in government, in retail, in consulting. These have been very big feeding grounds for a lot of entry level roles. Did you know that last year, 8 million students wanted an internship and only half got one? There is not enough supply to meet the demand, which is a much larger issue as to why companies are not offering internships. Applications have increased by grads looking for jobs by 30%, but the employers who are posting those jobs, specifically on campus, it's kind of declined by 15%. A lot of grads don't feel prepared. It's interesting. 87% of grads actually believe they're ready for the workforce, and so do their instructors, by the way. But only 50% of hiring managers agree. And it used to be about 5 months to land a job, but now it's taking like a full 6 months. So when you see that, oh, wow, it's been like 8 weeks, 12 weeks, you're still in the thick of it. And on average, it's taking 6 months to land a job. So we still see this consistent disconnect between employers and what expectations are of grads as well. Here's some opportunities. Here's some positive things that I've continued to see. First of all, there is growth in certain sectors of technology specific to IT, cybersecurity, cloud, analytics, and healthcare continues to grow. There continues to be a large need there, and absolutely in the trades. We've been hearing this over again. If you do have that AI and large language model knowledge, there's a lot of opportunity right now with strong benefits and high pay. So if that's an area and you maybe we're an engineering major, and if you're trying to continue in gaining certifications, there's opportunity. And the good news is that employers do plan to increase salaries as they're making it a little bit, they're raising the bar for the kind of candidates they want. Based on the annual college hiring survey, employers want to see ethical judgment, adaptability, critical thinking, and they really believe that a lot of candidates that are coming out have those skills. And they want to see that grads have more adaptability, more prepared. And I think our students are really making that effort. Again, skills-based hiring keeps coming back. Your ability to problem solve and teamwork and communicate. And are you competent in AI and how that blends into how it can help improve or optimize how you do your job? Interestingly, Microsoft and Cisco a few months ago decided that they would only use AI to scan for candidates. And what did they get? Only candidates using AI to apply for the job. So you had no humans interacting, and they realized I can't hire this way because I can't run a business like this. So they eliminated that. So we're seeing that companies are coming back around saying, you know what, I actually need a human to run the interview because I need humans who work for me. And I'm not solely using the technology as a replacement. And we don't know. We don't know the exact future of AI. It's moving so fast and so quick, I think way beyond any of our real comprehension. The forecast is that there's going to be new jobs and new ways of doing things. So to be seen of how that comes to play. And I wanted to share too, this came out at the World Economic Forum, that the fastest growing skills just in the next 5 years. So yes, of course, at the top of the list, you have AI and data and cybersecurity. But I want you to look at 4, 5, 6, and 7. This is where students who are studying liberal arts and those other skills of resilience and flexibility and being curious and leadership, these are really important and continue to be so as we navigate into the future. Okay. So what do we do? What do we do in an AI-driven job market that has all of this data? We're not sure where it's playing. We know it's a factor. Here is, my assessment just from my own reading, learning, practicing, using, just so you know, I have taught myself how to use custom GPTs. If you don't know what that is, it's in essence, it's a function inside of specifically ChatGPT where you can feed it your own information. So I feed it like my own book, my press releases, my blogs, only my information. And then I can use it to accelerate things like when I want to create a marketing campaign or do a video or create some new content. It's only pulling from me, but it's has the brains of AI to make it like really quick. It's pretty amazing. So here's what you do. I think it's really important to remember that you need to still lead with your skills, not just where you went to school or your GPA or what your major was. And what I mean by skills is not saying I'm hardworking or I'm responsible. It's I know how to problem solve. I know how to lead. I know how to research. I know how to sell. I know how to communicate. And not just saying that you do it. And by the way, as a student, you don't have to have had some fancy internship. This can come from a class project, being in a club, doing a research that you did with a professor. It doesn't have to be this big, elaborate job. But you also have to not only say, do you have the skill, but you have to give an example and a story of how you demonstrated that skill. So let's use research for an example. If you say you have research as a skill, tell me, how did you do the research? Who did you do it for? What tools did you use? Did you use AI? Did you use by interviewing? Did you use other databases? And how did you come up with this information that enabled you to provide a result, an outcome? And I think more that you can show these stories, this is what I know employers are looking for, and really this is something that, AI can't do that for you, your ability to talk about yourself in that unique way. The other piece, which is why I'm here and not an AI avatar, which I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure there's a way for that to happen, but I still value is that the most important thing right now is that people still hire people. It doesn't matter how much technology is in front of you or tracking systems or job boards or the device in your hand. And at the end of the day, a person is going to hire you, and you need to forge those relationships and network with these people. And I find very often a lot of students will guess at what it's like working at a certain company or what it's like to be in that role. The only way you're going to know is to actually ask someone who works there and to explain your value. And one of the things we do in teaching is really strategic networking. And I'll tell you a very brief overview. A technique we call the 3 A's. And the A's stand for this. The first A, which you plan ahead, is if you meet someone and your meeting goes exactly how you want, what action do you want that person to take at the end of your informational conversation? Maybe you want them to introduce you to a hiring manager. Maybe you just want them to agree to mentor you going forward, but you always have the action in mind and then you work backwards. So if they're going to take that action, what attitude do they need to have about you? That's the second A. And the attitudes are the skills. So you need to be able to share the skills that you have, and that therefore that person now comes away with, wow, I can see how Beth has strong analytical skills, or Beth has really great research skills because I've relayed that in the meeting. And the last A is answers. What answers do you need to help you make a better decision as if you like this opportunity or if it aligns with what your skill set is? And when you meet with the person, you flip it. So you ask your answers, you ask your questions to get answers, you convince them of your attitudes, and then you ask them to take an action, which pushes you further in the process. Now, I'm simplifying it, but this works every single time. This is something that we teach and has worked over and over again. So the networking and remembering that people hire people is absolutely critical. And the last piece, and I'm overlaying this a little bit, is you have to differentiate by combining not only your skill set, but in combining with AI. And kind of what I talked about earlier is what are you doing to educate yourself on how these language models work, how to prompt it, maybe how to do some research, maybe how to do some better fact finding, or enhance your knowledge or just improve your everyday life. Whether I talk to someone who's like, yeah, I was playing golf and we used it to keep score of who was the leader for it, or someone else told me like, yeah, I was trying to find some new recipes, or I just was coming up with an idea to help refine a speech that I had to give at a family event. Just get comfortable with it, and not necessarily for I'll say cheating on your homework, because as I said, professors are getting smart. They're figuring it out as how can you enhance your learning along with those human skills. That's what we've seen. And from a lot of conversations with employers of what they really want to see the most. Okay. So I'm going to pause at this juncture. I want to take a look at the questions. Let me kind of see if I can read these, and I will take a look at this. So let me share here. So hi, Kathy. Thanks for asking the question. So pandemic kids have never had an internship. Agreed. These kids have mental health issues, depressed, desperate, stuck. How do they get any type of experience? Not Parker Dewey or other internships. These places all want kids who are currently enrolled in college. So I think in this example, and the concern that it's taking 2 years to land a job, not just 6 months. So in this example, so what do you do when you have, if you're listening and you graduated a couple years ago and you graduated in 2021, 22, 23, right? You're not in school. So you don't have the benefit of a club or, something that's on campus. But here's what I will say. And I think the networking piece is very appropriate. It doesn't matter if you graduated 5 years ago or you're in school now. One of the best ways, a couple of ways that to gain some experience is one, you have to really think about for yourself, like, what am I good at? And just start with that process of what do I think I'm good at? And it may not always match up to your major, and that's okay. Or maybe there's a piece of that. But you need to start with what do you know that you're good at? Instead of blindly sending your resume everywhere or saying I have no experience, you do. Even if you can refer back to your school project and your school experience, people know that students were impacted by COVID and not everyone had an internship. A lot of students aren't able to have them for all kinds of reasons. Some of them aren't paid. So let's just start with, okay, there's no internship, but what did you do on campus? What were you a part of? And let's just say maybe it wasn't too much. So let's think about what can you do now? There are still ways to enhance your own knowledge through, even if I'll just give an example. So let's just say you really wanted to get into digital marketing and you didn't have the opportunity to do that. And you didn't have the opportunity to create content. I'm all about starting local. Start in the town that you live in. Go to like a local coffee shop or a local bagel place and say, I really, I've been noticing I come here all the time. I drink your coffee. I eat your bagels. I'd like to create a campaign for you. And I'm going to just do it for free or for very little. Let me try to promote you and get you experience. Let me tell you, a lot of small business owners need a lot of help. And they are usually thrilled when someone comes to them saying, I've noticed, I've watched, I'm a client, I'm a customer. Let me try to help you because I'd like to learn this too. So that is one way of just gaining experience. I know it's unpaid. It's a start. So let's say you felt you missed out on it. It could be part-time. The other thing you can do is also about self-study. There are so many free courses, certifications. I happen to I'm not going to mention, I know Parker Dewey is for college kids. There's another site called The Forage, Forage. Maybe Meg, if you can link that. And what I like about that is it gives simulation. So let's say all kinds of different companies, Red Bull, Soccer, JP Morgan, Oracle. And if you're interested in a role that works at those companies, they have these little certifications and maybe it'll take 3 to 5 hours. But all of a sudden, if you complete the certification, let's just call it, you were going to do ticket sales for Red Bull for soccer games. You now can use that and use also a phenomenal way to reach back to the company saying, I just completed this certification in sales for Red Bull. I'd like to talk to you further, or I'm interested in these types of roles. So I think you have to also kind of so that's another good resource. And the other one is you've got to go talk to people who went to the same school as you. You have to network. I know there's this feeling of there is no job, there's no opportunity. What am I going to do? But I think there's also a lot of fear. And I agree, there's a lot of mental health challenges and our kids are fragile. But as a parent, if you can encourage them to practice, by the way, role play, to have a conversation with someone. Tell me about your job. Tell me how you got there. You're not asking for the job. You're just learning. But the more you get comfortable talking to people, the easier it will be to talk to more people. And it's funny, I follow this very well-known unrelated therapist. And she was on her name is Esther Perel, and she was doing a podcast with Simon Sinek, who's a very well-known thought leader. And he said, what do you think is the thing that our young adults need to do the most that would help them? And she said, they need to talk to strangers, and that you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone and talk to people that you don't know. And even though it might feel uncomfortable, but that is actually how people get hired, is by having conversations with people that you've never met. I'm going to go back to the people hire people. So I hope that helps. It was kind of a little bit of a long answer, but I know there's a lot of fear and anxiety, but there's opportunities. There really are. Okay. Hi, Lisa. Okay. Do you recommend going back for a a grad school master's? So you qualify for an internship if you didn't have one. I get this question a lot. It's a loaded one, right? We had this back in 2020 where you see a lot of kids went to grad school, or happening now where oh, well, the job market's bad. Let me go to grad school. And I have actually been interviewed. I was actually interviewed by the Wall Street Journal a few years ago, and actually this past year on the similar topic. So here's my thing with grad school. I know, and the other challenge is that a lot of universities make it very financially appealing to say, oh, one more year and we'll make it like, only 30% of the tuition. So you'll have a 5-year thing and you'll have your MBA and or whatever master's. Here's my problem with this. I'm for going for a master's degree when you know what it will do for you in your career. And the challenge, so for example, I've had a number of kids who went to college and then went to grad school. And I had a student recently who has an MBA along with his undergrad and never had an internship relating to anything in business along the way. So the grad school degree didn't really get him any further in being a more appealing candidate. If you're not going to gain some kind of experience either while you're doing that master's or in before you go to it, the schooling might not even be as valuable. Your ability to participate in group projects and teamwork, and it's probably more valuable to get some insight and learning before you go to grad school. As I say, it's a very expensive procrastination tactic. And ultimately, if employers are still looking for experience, they don't necessarily hold a master's degree as experience. And I think you need to really do some research, talk to people who are in that program, talk to how much work like what are people doing after that? What is it going to get you? Some of these master's degrees you don't necessarily need to get to certain positions at universities. And I understand we're in a strange time and sometimes we just want to kind of like buy the time, but you can't do it in isolation. I've just seen this so many times with people who come to us with masters and they never had any work related to the work that they ultimately want to do. And it's still hard. And then they still have to go get some part-time jobs or shadowing or internships to kind of piece it together. So I hope that answers. It's not, there's no easy answer there. Okay. Hey, Elizabeth, thanks for asking. So if federal funding for research is curtailed, where and how can students get work experience who previously would have done research with a professor? Yeah, this is a challenging one. We're in a interesting time right now where research and federal funding has been, adjusted. So a lot of young adults who were considering going into that area, but I think to me, it's always about where can you use your transferable skills and what skills do you have that you learned in school, and you need to start thinking about where can you potentially transfer them over to. There is actually an AI tool. I'll mention it, and maybe Meg, if you can quickly like go to the site. It's free. I don't run it. I've been playing around with it. It's called Career Dreamer, and it's by Google. And the intent is to actually do some real potentials of all these different paths of what you can do with your skill sets and all the different jobs you potentially could do based on what you're saying you're good at. Again, it's called Google Career Dreamer. You can check it out. It's like their AI. It's free. It's in beta. We're always looking at every kind of technology that's out there, but I do like it. If you really feel like you're a little lost, it kind of gives you some ideas of what jobs are, what they're about, how you can maybe do some more research. But it comes back to, I'd rather you go back to your alumni that you went to the same school as, who had the same majors, who studied the same things, and talk to them and find people who are in potentially parallel or related fields that you could pursue and grow your skills until things shift again with the funding. But yeah, we're in a strange time of having to evaluate all of that. Let me get to another question on there. Hi, Jeff. So, when doing an informational interview, do you think that the job seeker should ask for a referral in that meeting? Or does that break an implicit promise that the meeting or call is about learning and not about getting a job? Really good question. So I think there's this give and take in I don't like informational interviews. So here's what normally happens. A student will say or write a message to someone on LinkedIn and they'll say, I really want a job. Can you talk? And that's just like super cringy and asking to get married on the first date. It's just like too much too soon. And I think there's ways you can word it. Because look, ultimately, people know you're asking for an informational interview to see if ultimately maybe there's something there. So it's not like people don't realize it. What we suggest is when you message someone to start the conversation saying, like you, I went to the same school or I had the same major, and I'm really interested in learning more about your role. I'd like to connect. So hopefully they accept the connection. And then you can take the conversation off LinkedIn because now you have their email, or you can message them further saying, thanks for connecting. Like I said, I had this major. I have skills in this. I'm looking to learn more about this kind of role, and I'm interested in what you want to learn about. Look, they understand that you're a young adult trying to gain information. I think in the conversation, and similar as I talked about that 3 A's technique, and maybe I do another webinar that kind of explains the networking a little bit deeper. I think it's a give and take. It's I want to learn more about you. I want to tell you a little bit about me. And based on what I've shared, and it sounds like you have to get some there's like levels of agreement. It's a sales technique. You're going to say, like, based on what I shared with you, do you think I have a skill set that aligns with this type of role or this type of industry? So you want them to get to like a yes. And they say, based on that, could you potentially introduce me to any other peers or any other hiring managers that that might be someone that I would be good to talk to? So you're not like, you're kind of getting a sense of, hey, if you think I have some skills, can you support me? People will do what you ask them to do. The problem with most students is they don't ask for anything, or they come away from the call and be like, oh, that was great. And I'm like, well, how'd it go? I'm like, well, I learned a lot and I think they like me. I'm like, well, that's great, but liking you doesn't actually move you forward. So I think you could potentially ask for a referral if there was a very specific job that you know about and they know about, and that person feels that they're aligned that you have the skill set for. If you ask for the referral, or if they get the sense of like, hey, I'm happy to help, I'm happy to share this with you, but it sounds like you need to do some more learning before you'd be ready for our company, and then you ask for the referral, then you're not reading the room. So I think you have to kind of get a sense in that conversation about the referrals. Some people are really easy about giving internal referrals. It just depends. It feels a little icky if I don't know you or they don't know you. It might be a little bit of a turnoff. So you have to kind of build that conversation and see how it goes and say, look, I just applied to this job. If you happen to know anyone, or if you'd be willing to give me a referral, I'd appreciate it. Or any advice. So kind of where you're not insisting on it, or there's other things that you can get out of that. So I hope Jeff, that answers, hope that helps answer the question. Okay. Oh, hi, Dalibert. You used my methodology, connect with a recruiter who gave you some positive feedback and referred you to other contacts. What are some effective strategies I can use to maintain and strengthen this relationship for the long run? Well, first of all, thank you for listening. Thanks for following the guidance. And I'm another proof point, like it works. It's been proven over and over again. But that's a really good question, because what happens is you'll have this conversation, you'll have this networking meeting, and they'll say, oh, well, it went really well. And I had a good conversation, but then you don't do anything, or then you don't hear back. So here's my guidance: that once you have the networking conversation, they agree to the action that you've asked for, maybe they've referred you, you still want to stay in touch, and you have to get a sense of their role. But first of all, absolutely, you need to send a thank you note. If you feel that this person is able to push you further into the job search process and committed themselves to maybe speak with other colleagues or investigate a job opening for you, my philosophy about follow up is that you should follow up every 7 days until you have an actual answer of like, yes, you're moving forward, or no, you're not. But it's not every 7 days saying, do I have the job? Do I have the job? Do I have the job? I like it where you are offering value. So you can say in the first message, thanks so much for taking the time. We spoke about this. I learned about this, and I look forward to, staying in touch. The next message can be, I'm just following up as we spoke, or you mentioned this resource and I looked into it, or I learned more about it. And let me tell you what I learned. Thank you so much for that insight. And I'm going to learn more. Or it could be, I just listened to this podcast and I thought of you, or I thought about your business, or I thought of if I was in this role, how I could add value. Or I heard this thought leader, or I read this article. So continue to find ways that add value, not just like, can you give me an answer? Can you give me an answer? And one of my favorite phrases when you feel that people have just not responded, let's say maybe the third email, the fourth email, you start the beginning sentence with, please pardon my persistence. Please pardon my persistence. It shows you're professional. It shows you're not going anywhere and that you're looking for an answer. And sometimes people just need to be reminded. I'll just speak for myself. I think I just checked. I think there's like 50,000 messages in my inbox. I mean, I've seen most of them, but people are busy. And I think one of the hard things, a lot of young adults are so afraid that they are bothering someone. I don't want to bother them. I don't want to call them. Or I spoke to them 2 weeks ago. You need to be persistent because here's the thing. Not always is the person who's the most qualified gets the job. Sometimes it's the person who's the most persistent and follows up and shows that they want it and shows that they put themselves in their shoes. So I hope that gives you some tips on how to persist, because I think there's a real value in doing that. And thank you for sharing that and using some of the feedback. Okay, so this is great. A question from the chat. We'll do one more and then I want to get to a couple other content. So how do I recommend getting real interview experience to prepare for job interviews? You have to practice. You have to practice and you have to take your job, your resume. And this is actually, we're going to get to this. We're going to talk about practicing in a moment. So we're going to hold off on that. And I'm going to share with you one of my tips on how you can practice for resumes. All right. So great questions. Keep them coming. I hope this is valuable, but I want to make sure we do that. So let's just talk about AI a little bit. So in the vein that you need to learn AI, by the way, this is just a few of many, many platforms. These are common ones. By the way, I think Google Gemini is doing something for free with college students. Now, they're not all free. Now, you can use them all, but there's limitations like Perplexity. I love Perplexity for research. It's amazing with quoted content and great sourcing, but I don't pay for it, so I'm limited to 3 searches a day. So it might be worth an invest. I pay for ChatGPT. I'm starting to play around with it, using it for my business. So that makes sense for me. But I go on all of them. I've used Grok. I've used Claude. I've used Copilot. Some are better than others. Some of them do other things a little bit better. I've done ones that create images. Midjourney is amazing for creating images and taking an image and turning it into video. I mean, there's some incredible things. Check them all out. Just play around and be curious and kind of do some self-learning there, okay? But let's talk about AI in the job search. And I get this question a lot. So should I use it for my resume? Should I not? Should I apply with it? Should I not? So here's my opinion as of right now in September 2025 and my take on AI and the job search and how we are starting to now, right now, none of our materials with our clients do we tell them to use AI, but we do have conversations about, especially on the research, and I'll show you. So here's 2 of my favorite ways to use AI. The 2 ways that I really like for AI. First one is research, especially when you're trying to explore, you don't know what you want to do, or you're trying to figure out what companies should I work for? What industries do I want? And tell it what you want. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean you have to learn about prompting it. Tell them that you are X, year in school and I'm studying this and I'm interested in this field and I want to learn more. Tell me about hiring trends, roles for grads, skills, and give it to me in simple terms. Give me 3 to 5 key insights I can use. It's a great prompt. If you want to screenshot the page, feel free. I mean, there's so many prompts out there, but keep it simple So it's like there's a way to do it. You want to give it the context of who you are and what you're trying to get at, and tell it to be simplistic in giving you the answer, because it's a great starting point of, I always wanted to learn about advertising industry, and I want to learn about it more from this perspective. It's very, very good for research, and it's phenomenal in terms of helping you. The next piece in terms of research is also in terms of interview prep. And I really like this as well, because one of the frustrations that a lot of companies, and I'll tell you in a moment, I just spoke to three, as I said, three different heads of campus recruiting, and they get so frustrated because the job search is so much like a spray and pray, and people are applying to hundreds of jobs. They're telling me that when the candidate actually comes in for the live interview with the person, they don't know anything about the company. They haven't done any research, and it just blows their mind that they haven't prepared. And that really annoys them and does not suit them well for considering of that person well. So say again, I'm this year in school, I'm preparing for an interview in this kind of job. Let me move this forward a little bit. Tell me in plain English, what do they do? Who do they serve? How do they make money? And tell me the top 5 things I should know so I can answer the question of, what do you know about us? So again, the research, the synthesizing and the organizing it and getting it into a really concise answer, I really like this as a way to use AI. Another one that I like to use is practicing interview questions. So if you are able to, find the job description, which you have, and then you even match up your resume, you can have it give you sample interview questions. But I also like the AI specific ones. As I'm telling you, right? I've told you that employers are going to start asking questions about AI, even if the job is not an engineering role, even if it's for communication or marketing. They're all asking the question like this. They'll say, well, how do you think AI is changing the way people work? Or share an example of an AI tool that you've used, even for school or projects. This is why I think it's so important that you have to play with it and get comfortable using it, because it's going to come up in your interview, whether the company has it in the job description or you're using it now or not. It's something that you just need to get comfortable with. So I do like it for interview question practice, especially when you have the job ad and you have your resume. It could also point out where you might be weak, where are things that you should focus on. And the best way to practice, though, for resumes is with real people. I know people use AI. It can be good, but I also like, getting someone's feedback, facial expression, and also the the applicant, you need to practice smiling and emoting and showing spatial expressions and getting feedback from someone as well. Okay. And I love this other tool that I actually just learned the other day, and now I use it for myself, is setting a task. So if you're a procrastinator and you should spend time, Meg, who's an intern, she's a senior. We just talked about this the other day. I said, so Meg, what are you doing in your job search? She's like, I know I need to get to it, but I'm going to try to start allocating certain time. AI can set tasks for you. So way beyond like a Google alert, it's almost like a reminder that you get off of your phone, but with more detail. So you can say every day or every month or once a week. So I have it sending me an update once a week. Tell me a single digest with separate sections for maybe certain companies, maybe industry. For me, I'm saying, tell me the latest news about AI and young adults and getting hired. And for each section, give me 5 bullets. Tell me 3 news stories from the past 7 days, include 1 source. Tell me why it matters. It's like amazing that it just shows up in your inbox. So now you're getting smarter about the companies and the people that you're talking to. And this is what employers want to know, that you are that you've done your research, you've done your homework, and you have a better sense for the companies. And by the way, when you start learning about companies, you realize, oh, that one's going bankrupt. Maybe I don't want to apply there. Oh, I never heard of this company. Maybe I should look into it. So this is where the education doesn't end. You have to continue to educate yourself, whether you're in school or you graduated. These are ways that I really like AI. So here's where I want you to be careful. So I know everybody's like putting their resume into AI, but you've got to be so careful, because if it comes back, by the way, it's becoming very obvious how to know when you have an AI resume. I can tell. I mean, the employers that I talk to, you don't even have to run it through a program. I can tell right away. If you are a student graduated and you're telling me that you pioneered something, I hope you pioneered something really good because I don't think you have pioneered something, maybe, but you got to be really careful. The words are very high and boastful, and it's not how people talk. And all these M dashes, like it's the long dash in there. And either you'll say things that are very grandiose, or you have a lot of buzzwords, or it's also. I talked to one of the employers. He's like, when the resume looks too perfect and there's no personal information and it almost looks too clean, too exactly lined up to the job, he's like, I know it's not real. I know they did it with AI. Or if you're telling someone you improved efficiency by 25%, but you're not saying how or what the impact was, you're kind of like just throwing stuff out there. So it's just becoming junk. So please be careful of using AI. Try to write it yourself, figure out your resume, figure out your skills. These are the pieces that are so critical to becoming and relating to be human when people want to get to know you in the job search. So what do we do? So here I have two sets of advice. This is for students and grads. I'll give one for parents. So you kind of have all this information, and it's a lot. I feel for our young adults right now. The world is a crazy place, and you feel like there's a lot on your plate in terms of trying to find a job, trying to afford to live, all of that. Here's what I want to remind you. Skills over GPA, meaning I want you to really think about what do you know how to do. And it's okay. I know it might be hard if your parents are listening with you. It's okay if it doesn't exactly match up to what you went to school for. It may not. You may have pulled things from what you learned and your major. It might not be exactly your major, but think about what you're really good at. And that's what you want to hone in on when you're talking to an employer. I have a student, I have a client who worked with us, and he's like, he couldn't believe that the Ivy League school that he went to and his GPA were not enough to get him a job. I mean, very bright kid. He had to show more. They want to see more. They want you to put yourself in the employers want you to put yourself in their shoes about how you can help them solve problems. And when you become the problem solver, that is when they choose you over someone else. I said it before, people hire people. You need to network with people. You need to talk to people. You need to be informed. You need to forge the relationships. It's everything. It's the hidden job market. And yeah, Meg just put in some or 10 insider job tips that I did for 10 years. It really hones in on that. You got to blend your human skills with AI. Do not use AI solely to only write your resume, only apply for you. People want to see that you're human. They want to see that you have interests and that you can have conversations. One of the recruiters who's at one of the top investment banks, he's like, I'm happy to talk to someone who's an English major or who has interests outside. He's like, we can teach them the core piece if I know that you know how to learn and that I know that you're curious and I know that you have the foundational skill sets. It doesn't have to exactly match up. So really just make sure you're kind of keep that in mind. Got to differentiate yourself, and you got to continue to persevere in the process and differentiate. It's really when you show how you put yourself in someone else's shoes, how you can show how you can solve problems for them. That's what makes you look different. Your ability to align your skills to what they need and to help them meet their metrics and their goals, that's what makes you look different. And like I said before, one call, one message, one follow-up email is not going to be enough, not in this market. You need to persevere, and it's not personal, by the way. So when you don't hear back or they don't do it, I know it's hard. I know this is like it's mentally very straining. But it's not always personal. It could be they just didn't have the money or they just hired someone internally. You got to keep going. You got to keep persevering. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. And if you're a parent, here's some tips for you. Very often you will give advice to your kids and say, just go to apply to jobs every day online. That's what I want you to see. I'd encourage you to help them because a lot of times they're struggling to understand what skills they have and they don't know or they can't see it. So as a parent, say, you know what? I noticed that you're an amazing leader and you were working on this project and that's the role. Maybe that's something you should really talk about when you talk about your skills. Or I noticed your ability to analyze things. So help point that out for them. The other thing I want you to also reinforce it's not a numbers game. I want to just make it clear. Sometimes, and we don't know any better, I'll just say collectively, like we're trying to help. So we'll tell our kids, I want you to apply to like 50 jobs a day or whatever it is. Here's a metric that I want you to help them with. The metric to measure when a student or anybody is looking for a job is not how many applications were submitted. It's how many live people did you speak with today or this week or this month. That's a better measure because people hire people, and getting in front of people will make you also more confident about speaking about yourself and gain the insight that you need to know, is this job for me? Is it not? So measure the networking conversations and less about how many applications are submitted. And that kind of goes into the structuring their time and the metrics. I want to hit on introductions. I think all of us are well intended to say, I have a peer, I have a colleague, I want to introduce you to my friend who's very high up in a company, and I'm sure he'll hire you. And here's what's happened over the years. Parents come back to me and say, I don't understand it. My kid has great grades and they have great, resume, and my friend's a VP, and nothing ever happened. And what happens a lot of times is the kids blow it, and it's not intentional. They were not prepared. The introduction was too soon. It was too early. They took it too casually. They thought mom and dad had this all figured out with a friend. But when it comes to money and business, people are not taking a chance on anything or anyone. So please be very careful about the timing of when you put your kids in front of your contacts. Practice with them, rehearse with them, make sure that they are ready if you're going to do that and that this is something that they want as well. But doing it too soon is not always the best outcome. So just that. I've said it a million times, people hire people, encourage your kids to keep talking to people and really encourage them to persevere. The one message, one email, it's not enough. They have to just keep following up. And I know they're afraid. They are afraid. I understand it's not a lesson. I think our kids, I'll just, if you're a kid listening or a parent, they missed a lot of time. The pandemic made them miss a lot of normal progression of development, social skills. So things feel a lot more difficult now. I am very sensitive to that. We need to all be sensitive to that. They just don't know. They really don't understand. But the more we can support them and encourage them to do it, the better. Okay. So if there's additional questions, I'm going to come over to that. I just want to also show that if you're interested in getting the book, it's a really phenomenal resource. And by the way, even though I say it's a parent's guide, it's really meant for something that you can work on with your kid. If you're a student listening, this is for you too. It's not just for them, but it is a tool that a lot of people were telling me they needed. And I'm really thrilled that it, as I said, it's an Amazon #1 bestseller. It's really teaches the framework of what we do in our process for coaching. I also do coaching. So if you're wondering about our services, we offer both private and group coaching. And that's something that we'd have to have a consultation call with you. It's complimentary. We're happy to speak with you. You can scan the QR code or you can find it on my website where it says Let's Talk. And we have upcoming group coaching sessions in October. We just have a couple that started this past week, but really, really effective programs that really help our young adults not only land the first job, but the second and the third. And as I say to people, I feel like we're just in the confidence building business. Like they really understand how to navigate this and they feel good about themselves in the process as well. And lastly, we have lots of free resources. I know Meg put a whole bunch there. Feel free to, again, scan it. It's on our website. We give a lot of free things away. How to have a great resume, LinkedIn, interviewing. I just did this new guide about the 10 insider tips for students, tips for parents. I have lots of videos. So, feel free to engage with all of that material as well. And I just giving you a quick list. I mean, we have a lot of kids, even in this difficult job market, they've gotten hired. We had a lot of kids gotten hired, and we're not recruiters. We don't place them there. So I feel we're doing some good things here in terms of helping a lot of students. So let me see if I can stop sharing. Here I am. And let's come to the Q&A and let's answer a couple more questions. Okay. So I hope we answered from the chat. How do you recommend getting real interview experience to prepare for job interviews? And I think I did touch on that. you got to practice. I mean, that is one of the big things with interviewing. And we do a lot of mock interviews, by the way. We do it on video. We make everyone get dressed up. And by the way, you have to get dressed up from head to toe because putting on the shoes matters. It's a state of mind. You hold your body differently. You come across differently, but it has to be practiced. You cannot reading from a script, reading from a paper of what your answer is versus saying it is totally different things. So you really need to make sure that you're doing it in front of people, in front of the mirror, in front of video, especially, just click on a Zoom and just do it with no one else there. And trust me, I've done this for many, many years and I still practice and I still say it out loud because nothing like being rehearsed in practice. So that's the big thing. And Elizabeth, thanks for asking the question. How do our small cohorts create community amongst the students? Especially, it's funny, we started our group coaching, maybe I started it about 5-6 years ago. And what I found is that, everyone feels like they're on their own. We feel like students feel very isolated. They feel like they're the only one. No one else is, searching like I am, but that's not true. So we have students who come from every major, every walk of life, every university, every part of the country, and they come together in our groups. And we go around in the very beginning and we ask them, tell me one challenge that you're facing. And everyone's like, heads are nodding because they all feel seen and heard and they're all in it together. So it's a really nice way to build camaraderie and not feel so isolated. So our groups have been very popular, very successful. We keep them small, about 5 or 6 kids with one of our advisors. I have a phenomenal team that works with me who coaches them. And now we also have a whole online portal for all of our materials. So we have also evolved with our technology as well. And I think, we've done some good things there. I want to show one more thing that I think will be really valuable because we're right at the end of that hour. I had the opportunity to meet with 3 different heads. I'm just jumping ahead to the very end because I want to show you a slide that I reserved just for this. I met with the head of campus recruiting for Morgan Stanley. I met with the head of campus recruiting for New York Life. And my colleague met with the head of campus recruiting for Wells Fargo. And these were very fortunate that we have these relationships. We have relationships with a lot of employers just to make sure we're on the pulse of things. And especially our questions were, what are you doing now with AI? Are you hiring with it? Because I want to make sure that we adjust accordingly if they're going to start using it. And it's so interesting. And by the way, I did use AI to help me synthesize all my notes so I can come with what are the 8 themes? So that's where I love AI when it can kind of optimize some things. One of the number one things that they all said is the fact that, that everyone thinks it's a numbers game and that you're sending hundreds of applications and that the lack of preparation and the lack of even knowing what the company is about or knowing, if you come to, you can't go to Morgan Stanley and say, I just want to work in finance. You need to understand, do you want to be in investment banking and wealth management? They want to know, what division do you want to be a part of and why? And again, you don't have to be the ultimate expert. But, same thing with New York Life. She's like, we're not just about insurance. We have asset management. We have different parts of our company. And when we don't have when this candidate who finally gets filtered through and makes it to an in-person interview and hasn't done any preparation to research us or have any clarity about just basic stuff that's on the internet, they're really frustrated and it does not bode well. The other thing is that they want to be wanted. They want to be wanted. And what do I mean? They want someone who really wants to work there and not just yeah, because I really want a job and it would be great for me. No, I really want to work there because you're so passionate about this, or I read about this, merger or acquisition or this initiative. They want you to really be excited about being there. And I know it's hard. A lot of our kids are not always so excited or you don't know, but I think that's another big piece is too. Sometimes even the soft skills are outweighing the technical. Like I said, especially in the investment banks, they're like, you don't have to have, yes, what I'd like to see that you have some finance or accounting classes, but they're recruiting English majors. It is not necessarily, it's aptitude and your ability to be adaptable and communicate and problem solve. So I just, same thing. Look, would they like internships? Yes, but they're not everything. And even when I had the conversation with the woman at New York Life, she's like, look, I know some kids didn't have internships. Tell me about your projects. Tell me about your clubs. Like, that's appropriate. I think our kids are getting so wound up that I have to have the most perfect, rotational experience. Those are really hard to get. So, like, I'll just be honest too. We talk to a lot of people who want to be in finance. Morgan Stanley is done with their hiring for their incoming class of analysts for 2026. They finished it in the end of August. And how did they finish it so soon? They pretty much recruited out of their internship class from the summer. And how did you get into the internship class? Is that you had to know at the end of your freshman year, early sophomore year, to go to the networking meeting, to go meet with them and start the recruiting process for 18 months ahead. Now, that is not typical. Okay, that's investment banking and a lot of the big banks. But, that's not for everybody. But this is, everyone has their ways. So if that's not the place for you, there's plenty of others. And I think right now too, we need to think like more local. There's smaller firms who need good help. I think we have to get off of the top list that everybody thinks of and everybody knows the names of. We need to do more research because trust me, there are thousands and thousands of mid-level and smaller companies that need talents. Same thing. They want people to understand AI. You don't have to code. You don't have to be an engineer. They want to know how you've used it. And they want you to be professional. And the follow up, they want to see a thank you note and they want you to start early. They want you to be in touch with them sooner than later. Like you can start networking anytime. There could be no job opening and you're just trying to learn. And that's what they're really aiming for. So I hope this was of value to you. I do this a few times a year because I just know that there's so much need and questions that people have. So I hope it was valuable to you. If you want to learn more, we're happy to have a complimentary consultation. I think Meg has posted all of our links. You can find me on social media. I'm kind of on every platform there. Very consistent in what we talk about, but we're here to help. And I'm grateful for your time and this evening and look forward to connecting with you further. Have a great night.